Because behind the glamour, behind the headlines, Diana had a plan for the future of the crown. And according to Elton John, it didn't include Camilla or even her own sons taking the throne right away. Underscore. No, it was Kate she was quietly preparing, even back then. Underscore. But why? And how deep did her intentions go? And if that's true, where does that leave Meghan Markle now? On the outside or at the center of a royal betrayal? This is the untold story. Crown understand the weight of Elton John's revelation. You have to understand a bond he shared with Princess Diana. Underscore. Not the kind of surface-level celebrity friendship the tabloids love to exploit. No. This was something deeper, softer, protective. They were both hunted by the same beast, the paparazzi, both vilified for being too bold, too emotional, too human in a world that demanded silence and submission. Diana, the people's princess, and Elton, the global icon, found comfort in each other's defiance. When the world turned cold, they offered each other warmth. It was Elton who held back tears as he sang at her funeral. It was Diana who stood by him during his darkest battles with addiction and grief. Underscore. Together, they shared something very few in the royal orbit ever could. Honesty, loyalty, and truth behind closed doors. Underscore. And when Diana died in 1997, it wasn't just a car crash in Paris. It was a rupture in the monarchy, a seismic jolt that shattered public trust, that made people question what the royals really stood for. Underscore. But Elton, he didn't walk away. He remained close with both William and Harry, quietly guiding, quietly grieving, and always guarding the secrets Diana left behind. Secrets that, until now, had never been spoken aloud. Underscore. Because what Elton is finally ready to reveal, it isn't just about the past. It's about the future Diana wanted, and the one she may have secretly tried to create. Through Kate Middleton. Underscore. It began in 1981 at Windsor Castle. Underscore. A royal ball glittering with tiaras and tension, and in the middle of it all, a young Diana Spencer, barely 20, newly engaged to the future king. Nervous, polished, alone. Underscore. And then Elton, radiant in his signature sparkle, but with eyes that immediately recognized something behind Diana's royal poise. That night, they laughed like old friends who had only just met. He would later say it was as if they already knew each other, because behind the gowns and protocol, both carried deep wounds. Elton from the ruthless music industry, Diana from a palace that never fully embraced her. And what began as light-hearted banter turned, over the years, into something far more sacred. They would confide in one another. Late-night phone calls, quiet lunches, handwritten letters sealed with trust. Diana opened her heart and Elton listened. Underscore. She told him about the coldness of royal life, how even in rooms full of people, she felt invisible, how her role was defined by what she couldn't say. But more than anything, she spoke of her boys. William and Harry were her heartbeat, her legacy. She feared what the royal machine might turn them into and what kind of lives they'd be forced to lead. Underscore. And then one day, in one of those long, unguarded conversations, she said something Elton never forgot. Underscore. I think William's wife will need to carry more than just a title. She'll need to carry me. Underscore. Elton didn't understand it fully at the time, but as years passed, he realized what she meant. Diana wasn't just thinking about love. She was thinking about succession, symbolism, survival. She began setting things aside. Jewelry, letters, quiet signals for a future she wouldn't live to see. Underscore. That iconic sapphire engagement ring, it wasn't chosen at random. It was preserved, passed down, not just as a memory of love, but as a message. When William proposed to Kate Middleton with it, something shifted. Underscore. It was as if Diana was speaking. Through Kate. Underscore. And Elton, he saw it. He felt it, because he was there when the seed were planted. And now, he's finally telling the world just how intentional Diana truly was. Underscore. For years, the world has asked one impossible question. If Diana were alive, would she have sided with Meghan? Or was it always meant to be Catherine? Underscore. Because beneath the surface of royal smiles and carefully curated photo ops, there's been a hidden battle not of titles, but of legacy. Underscore Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, now Princess of Wales, has long been hailed as the modern embodiment of Diana's quiet strength. Poised, graceful, controlled. A woman who, like Diana, learned to suffer silently under the weight of monarchy. And then came Meghan, fiery, independent, American, a woman who refused to stay silent. Underscore, to some, Meghan was a breath of fresh air, Diana 2.0. To others, she was a disruptor, a threat to the very traditions Diana once tried to challenge, but ultimately stayed loyal to. But here's where it gets complicated. Underscore, according to Elton John, Diana had very specific hopes for the woman who would one day marry William. In private letters, never intended for public eyes, she wrote of wanting a stabilizing presence. Someone who would support William not just as a partner, but as a protector of the crown. Underscore, she feared the chaos, the spotlight, the politics of emotion. She wanted her son to have what she never did, a true teammate in a palace full of enemies. And in Elton's words, she saw that in Kate long before the world did. Underscore, this wasn't about personality. It was about purpose. Diana, even in her pain, was still loyal to the institution because it was tied to her children's future. Underscore, so when Meghan burst onto scene, and then later exploded it with that now infamous Oprah interview, accusing the firm of racism, cruelty, and abandonment, Elton didn't applaud. Underscore, in fact, insiders say he was deeply disappointed. Underscore, because for Elton, this wasn't just about Meghan's pain. It was about protecting Diana's memory. And to hear Meghan, in his view, weaponize that memory to align herself with Diana while simultaneously tearing apart the royal family Diana died, trying to reconcile with, felt like betrayal. He remained publicly neutral. But behind closed doors, he pulled away. Underscore, and at the same time, his bond with William and Kate only grew. He attended their wedding. He spoke glowingly of Kate's quiet strength. And when baby George was born, Elton reportedly wept because, in his heart, it felt like Diana's legacy was safe. The brothers, of course, have split. Harry now living in California, estranged, outspoken. William, the heir, carrying the weight of a future kingdom. Underscore, the public, once firmly in Meghan's corner, has shifted. And in the middle of it all is that haunting question Elton has refused to answer publicly. What would Diana have said? Underscore, he doesn't offer a quote, but he does offer a look. A knowing, pain, protective look, as if to say, Diana made her choice long ago, not with her words, but with her will, her ring, her vision, and it wasn't Meghan. It was Kate. The silence didn't break all at once. Underscore, it began with whispers, quiet excerpts in Elton John's latest memoir, tucked between chapters on grief and recovery. But then, in an interview that caught the world by surprise, he said it, softly, reluctantly, as if he'd been carrying it for far too long. Underscore, Diana had dreams, he said, and not just for herself, for her boys, especially William. Underscore, and that's when the letters came into focus. Private, unpublished, unseen by the public, but read again and again by Elton. In them, Diana had written about her hopes, her fears, and one line in particular that Elton never forgot. Underscore, William will need someone who carries peace, not fire. The world will set him alight soon enough. Underscore, she didn't name Catherine. But Elton insists she didn't have to. She had met her long before the world paid attention. And she watched quietly as the young university student carried herself with grace under growing scrutiny. Diana saw something familiar, not in style but in spirit. And as Elton spoke, his voice cracked because the symbolism was never accidental. Underscore, that sapphire ring, Diana's most iconic piece, wasn't just jewelry. It was her story set in stone. The same ring she once wore while walking through fire, now passed on a woman she believed could walk through it again. Underscore, when William gave to Catherine, Elton said he felt her there, in the room, in the moment, smiling. Underscore, but for all the joy there was also sorrow. Underscore, because the same dreams that built up one woman seemed to leave another behind. Underscore, Meghan, underscore, beautiful, brilliant, but misunderstood. She was never meant to carry Diana's legacy, and perhaps she was never supposed to try. Underscore, Elton watched it unfold from a distance. The royal tours, the headlines, the wedding that captivated the world. And then the unraveling, underscore, the interview with Oprah, the accusations, the silence from the palace, underscore, he didn't speak publicly. But insiders say behind the scenes he was devastated, not because Meghan had spoken, but because Harry and William, the boys Diana loved more than life, were now strangers, underscore, the legacy she fought for was now fractured, underscore, Elton had once promised her, through tears at her funeral, that he would look after them. And now, he could only watch as the future she dreamed of tore at the seams. But then came Catherine, underscore, poised, quiet, resilient. As the world turned harsh and the crown grew heavier, she stood firm. Through scandal, through illness, through loss she endured. Underscore, and slowly, unmistakably, she became exactly what Diana had once described in those letters. Underscore, a woman who carries peace. Underscore, not a replacement, but a reflection. Underscore, Elton doesn't compare the two, he connects them. He says, Catherine didn't chase Diana's legacy. It found her. And Meghan? She wasn't rejected. She was simply not the vision Diana had left behind. Unintended consequences. Two women, two paths, one crown still waiting. Underscore, and the man who held Diana's hand through it all. Now holding the truth in plain sight. Underscore, the echoes of Elton's words didn't just stir nostalgia. They reignited a firestorm. Underscore, because in a monarchy built on silence, his voice, a voice so close to Diana's heart, carried the weight of truth. Underscore, almost overnight, the media reframed the narrative. Underscore, headlines no longer just debated Harry and Meghan's exile. They asked something far more divisive. Was Catherine always Diana's choice? Underscore, it was a question with no official answer, but the signs had been there all along. Catherine, now Princess of Wales, is no longer just a dutiful wife. She's a queen in waiting. Steady, elegant, unshaken by crisis. She has weathered health scares, public scrutiny, and an institution in turmoil. And through it all, her approval ratings have soared. Underscore, she's become the face of modern royalty, without ever trying to reinvent the wheel. Underscore. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Harry and Meghan's image has shifted. What began as a fairy tale, the royal rebel and his Hollywood bride, has slowly faded into something more complicated. Their Netflix specials, their memoirs, their lawsuits, once seen as bold truth-telling, are now viewed by many as bitter, even opportunistic. Underscore, the public, once deeply divided, has started choosing sides, and Elton's revelation may have tipped the scale, because when someone like him, someone who held Diana's hand through her darkest nights, says that Catherine was embodiment of Diana's hopes, it reshapes the entire conversation. Underscore, suddenly, those long-standing media takes, Diana would have defended Meghan, feel less certain, and a new phrase has emerged in commentary, social media, even late-night panels. Diana would have loved Catherine. Underscore, that idea, that possibility, has breathed new life into William's position. Underscore, he's no longer just a future king. He's the keeper of Diana's dream. And that makes Harry, heartbreakingly, the outsider. Still beloved by many, still powerful in his own way, but outside the legacy. Not because Diana didn't love him, but because the version of the future she quietly imagined didn't lead where he chose to go. There's even talk, among royal watchers, of Diana's letters and mementos being a kind of living will. Underscore, not legal, not binding, but a deeply personal blueprint. Underscore, jewelry passed with intention, words chosen carefully. Friendships, like the one with Elton, preserved to carry her wishes forward. Underscore, and now, as Catherine steps more fully into the spotlight, as Charles's reign grows increasingly ceremonial, and as the world begins to accept what's always been written between the lines, It becomes clear Diana may have died young, but her voice never truly faded. Underscore, it just waited for someone to listen. Underscore, legacy is never clean. It doesn't come wrapped in ribbons or sealed with royal wax. It lingers in rings and whispers, in choices made long after we're gone. Underscore, for Elton John, the cost of carrying Diana's legacy has been steep. He's outlived the fairy tale and watched the cracks deepen. He's held her memory while the world fought over her image. Underscore, for William and Harry, the weight is heavier still. Two brothers shaped by the same tragedy, now standing on opposite ends of a dream their mother never got to finish. And for Catherine, the weight is becoming hers. She didn't ask to be Diana's mirror, but now, every move she makes, every gesture of grace, every moment of silence, is seen not just as royal duty, but as Diana's dream realized. Underscore, she is the queen in waiting, the one who carries peace. But is she ready to carry a crown built from so much sorrow? And then there's Meghan, a woman who never met Diana, yet lives in her shadow. Was she a tragic misunderstanding? A victim of a palace that never learned to change? Or was she a rebellion? A bold refusal to play the part Diana once played so beautifully and so painfully. Underscore, the truth is, Diana may have loved both. Her heart, after all, was never bound by protocol. She loved fiercely, complicatedly, humanly. Underscore, and maybe, just maybe, this was never about choosing sides. Maybe Diana's true wish wasn't for one woman to carry her torch, but for the monarchy to finally embrace all kinds of strength. So we're left with a question Elton never fully answered. Underscore, not in interviews, not in letters. Underscore, but in your heart, ask yourself, did Diana's heart choose Catherine? Or would she have embraced them both? Underscore, that answer might just change how we see the crown forever. Underscore,